Sir, I think you have the wrong car.
You've emailed for an appointment 2 days in a row.
Tell me what's going on.
I've never seen a case like this before. 23 identities live in Kevin's body. Did something happen?
There's a flower on the pillows, a flower in the bathroom, like we're important. Who is that?
Maybe she can help us.
We're here! We're in here!
Don't worry. He knows what you're here for. He's not allowed to touch you. He knows that.
My name's Hedwig. I have red socks.
How old are you?
9?
The human brain is the most complex object in the universe.
The only way we're getting out of here is if one of them decides to let us out.
Aren't you the clever one?
Hedwig, could you help us?
Okay. I have a window in my room.
Maybe you could show us.
Oh, that's here. Now it's closed. Now it's open.
Did you think it was a real window? So you could leave?
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body chemistry with their thoughts.
Someone's coming for you.
What will happen when he unlocks the potential of his brain?
There is no limit to what he can become.
Tonight is a sacred night. You will be in the presence of something greater. The world will understand now. The beast is real.
He's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to you.
Guys, welcome. Congratulations on the movie night.
Thank you.
Congratulations on another great film in your filmography, man.
I love being here. This was fun last time we did this.
It was great. You were here for the visit last time. Also, that was your first film with Blumhouse, right? This is your second. Let's
correct.
just start there. What brought you back working with Jason Blum?
You know, I just like his taste, and he's a great big brother to me. You know, producers for me aren't really, saying, hey, this is how we're going to shoot it, or this is how many days you have, and I think we should cast this person. That's not what the producer does. He's more of like someone there to give me advice when I'm like feeling, ambiguous about something, or I'm feeling confused, and I'll call them up and I'll say, what do you think? Should we do this? I was thinking about doing this, and they'll give me advice. And Jason's my big brother in that way, and really kind of calms me. I'm like an anxious guy, and he keeps me in a more, not so spastic place. I can be a little bit of spaz.
And you're the kind of director also who's sort of aware of what you need to shoot, how many days there are. You're a director and a producer most of the time, right?
Yeah, I'm really particular. Like, I'll know if we're doing a scene, how long it'll take me to shoot roughly. I'll know it's a 3-hour thing or a 4-hour thing or a 2-hour thing, and so I can lay out all the days of the shoot in a kind of very meticulous way.
Let's start with where this project started for you in the writing process, because you can kind of see, or I at least felt like, you could see a writer starting one place and then just sort of going down as many rabbit holes as they could if they just started with the idea of someone with a multiple personality disorder. Is that where it started for you?
Well, I've always been interested in this disorder, I think, from when I was in college and taking psychology courses, and it's a fascinating field. And this character I wrote, James's character, I wrote a long time ago, and I had it in my notebook of ideas. And I have a notebook of all different ideas I get, and then they either grow into something or they just sit there. And this one really started speaking to me. I always wanted to make this. I actually almost gave it away as kind of like a producing thing. I was going to have somebody else do it, and then when it was just about to happen, I was like, no, that one's mine. I don't want to give that one away.
James, I can't imagine getting this sort of pitched to you as an actor and saying, no, it's an incredible opportunity to do so much work as an actor. Is that how you looked at it when you got it?
Yeah, the good thing about working with a director who writes their own material is that they don't need to pitch you the movie. You read the thing, and you didn't pitch it at all. All you did was, on a Skype call, tell me to have an open mind, go with it, and be brave. And the thing about it, when you are reading a script written by the director, Or the thing about when you meet a director and they haven't written the script, they kind of go, this is what the movie's going to be like, talk. And that sometimes that's true, but you can turn up on set and it's nothing like what they talked, and everyone can talk the talk. Everybody can talk a good film and an interesting dynamic. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like nothing you've ever seen before. But when you've written, I just said it. It was really believable. But when the director's written the script, he doesn't need to say any of that because you've got a direct link to what he's thinking, what he visualizes, and I think even as an actor, you have an even bigger capacity than maybe other people within the industry as well. You don't even need the scene descriptions, you don't need anything, just that dialogue. You get the poetry of it, or you get the subtext of it, you get the bluntness of it, and you immediately go, yeah, I know what he's talking about. And I felt like that immediately after reading the script, and I was dead excited.
I have to ask, what was the greatest challenge, or what made you the most nervous about portraying this character or characters?
Knight said this before about this movie. Like for the first maybe few minutes, you kind of go, are we watching Saw? Are we watching a movie, a movie where people wake up in a dungeon and have to escape and there's a malevolent presence trying to outwit them and outfox them and stuff? And plus it's 3 girls and it's a guy kidnapping them. And I was really worried for the first couple of pages, like, this is Saw? M. Night Shyamalan's making Saw? I don't want to be in Saw. And then
you also, sorry, I don't mean, but you also kind of play with that dynamic throughout the movie.
That's what I'm saying, but like you turn page 4 and you go like, oh, thank fuck, this isn't Saw. Do you know what I mean? And then page 5 is like, it isn't what I thought that wasn't Saw. And then page 6 is like, it isn't what I thought that wasn't Saw.
And page 10 is like, wait, is this Saw? And then page 11 is like, oh no, it's still not Saw.
It's this. And I think that's what, if there's anything you're known for, it is that twisty thing, and it's sort of reductive to always people to bring it up. So I'm bringing it up before anybody you all do, right? But what's amazing about this script is that it's amazing storytelling, and that I feel like it redefines itself and it adds a deeper layer every 5 or 10 minutes. Your jaw is constantly getting further and further towards the ground, and that's how I felt when I read the script. So it was dead easy to accept this.
Yeah, I mean, there's this feeling of wanting to do unconventional things, and I've been making the last 2 a couple smaller movies so I can feel the freedom to do that. Maybe it's just in my own psychology that I'm tricking to do these things and feel justified. But to do like a 3-generation cast, and they're equally like, it's a triangle that's going on in the movie, and so even that's unusual. And even the tropes of a young teenage girl in a scary movie, those are all flipped. Their behaviors are flipped from what would normally happen, and they're approaching the situation in a different way than in those other kind of more traditional genre pieces.
Do you find yourself, or did you find yourself specifically while you were writing this? I mean, you brought up the twisty thing. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but I think it's fascinating.
James.
Whatever, dude.
I know, I'm
Thanks,
really sorry.
James.
But I think it's fascinating to bring up something that is quite reductive when it comes to your talents and your storytelling skills, where in many ways this film could almost seem like a commentary on that reductiveness that people use with you, because your twists in this are throughout the whole movie, and they're genre twists, and they're not just the surprise twist that you're sort of, unfairly characterized with. Was there any part of you that does react to that sometimes, or notice a kind of reaction to that while you're writing?
No, I mean, obviously right now I just finished a tour with these guys around the world, and we've been doing all the interviews, so we probably have done 300, 400 interviews.
Where that has come up?
Well, when you keep getting asked about something, you go, are you scared of falling? Are you scared of falling? No, maybe. And then you start to, it's just in your head now. But when I'm in a room by myself writing, it's not like that, It's by nature, these are thrillers. And by nature, suspense is requiring that I don't give you information, right? So if we're in a room here and this is the scene of the movie and we see something out this window, someone's running or something happens, that's already, we don't have information. We think it was just one thing, and then we see 4 people running and then 50 people running, and we're still trying to do this thing. The lack of information causes suspense in that scene that imaginary scene, right? What's happening? Something kind of big is happening outside, but we don't know. Suspense begins. The moment you get the information is the structure of the piece. So how to tell you guys what's actually going on outside the window is fun, So naturally, if I wasn't making thrillers, I guess there wouldn't be this natural moment of information where I'm going to give you a whole bunch of information.
And that's why the twist thing has always felt kind of reductive, because I remember when it first came up, it was like, no, this is storytelling. This is how you tell a story, and this is the structure of the movie, and it's a thriller that requires this.
Even the word twist, every time you say it, I'm like, it's like a dance move or something, like the moonwalk. walking. Here it comes.
I'm trying to put it to bed right now. I'm trying to dig its grave and throw it in there for you. That's
Like,
what I'm
And
trying to do.
would you please do the moonwalk?
Okay, here we go.
Because it will.
Anya, you're coming fresh off the success of The Witch, which I think is not just one of the best horror movies
Yeah.
of last year, but one of the best movies of last year.
Woo! Thank you. Thanks.
You do an incredible job in this film. Did you have any hesitancy getting into another thriller or horror type movie, or did you jump at the chance to work with Night?
I mean, I think, again, it's not something that I intellectualize. I don't think any of us really do. You just sort of, you get a good script and you fall in love with the character and you want to tell the story. And I knew that Knight loved Casey as much as, I did. And we both wanted to tell the story, right? And then the script was really cool and I was sort of sold. But I'd never deliberately not do something because I'd done it before if it was really calling my name. If that makes sense.
How did you work with James as he sort of figured out exactly how his characters were going to behave and perform in front of you? Did it adjust to what your performance was going to be?
I think that's acting. It's like, with each time that you do
Did you
a take,
act while you were in front of the camera?
hopefully. No, it's like we would approach each take kind of differently, and we were dancing together, and so he would throw a different energy at me, and I would hopefully, meet him with it. But
That was good.
Thanks. But yeah, no, it's just acting. But we were really lucky that we got a week of rehearsal prior. It was a week. It was like a week, 10 days. 10 days.
It's nice when you feel like you're improing, even though you're just doing the words. You're doing the words as they're written, but you still feel like you're improing, and that usually means that the story is being told in the space between the two actors rather than just in me and what I'm choosing to do. And fuck you, I don't care what you're doing. And just it's happening in you and you're doing whatever you choose to do. But when it's happening between you and the space between you is getting energized, I feel like that means you're both giving to each other, and there's like energy coming from her to me, and there's energy coming from me to you, and what I do affects you, and what you do affects me, and
You're
it's not just that I've
reacting.
got a route plan and I'm sticking to it, and that's when it feels good.
One of the telltale signs as a director, and none of these three do it. I'm not just saying that because they're here, but if you see take two, the guy goes nah, and he does that, and we're gonna win or whatever the line is, and then take four is we're gonna win. I go cut. I go. There's no way you are organically feeling the exact same thing and it manifested through your body in the exact same way. No way. You're not listening. You're not in the moment. You're chasing a ghost. Get present. Like I would get like that about it because you're falling in love with something and you're not present anymore. I mean, you're not being truthful. You're chasing them. And if you're chasing, you're doing what he's saying. It's like, I'm not listening to you anymore. I'm waiting to do my finger, we're going to win, moment. And that's not, the person feels like they're alone and there's no listening anymore between the two.
But that's so interesting because I feel like when you're making a thriller, you as a director have to a degree, be chasing something very specific per scene, both in performance and tone. How do you find that wiggle room between them being able to be present and within the moment, but actually still capture exactly what you need to convey the information that your thriller needs?
Well, I mean, the thriller is what they're feeling. So if I'm saying to Betty in a scene, you are at this level of concern about your client, and you're starting to say, this is the feeling that you're getting. You're concerned. You don't have enough information to feel life and death or something like that, but that thing that you trusted in you is going off and it's saying something's wrong here, even though that you have no information, that thing, and you don't want to lead it. So we'd have those kind of conversations, and that's all related to the pressure cooker of the thriller.
There's also, you've talked quite a bit about the first time that I enter the movie as a character called Patricia. And like sometimes Knight will do 2 takes and he feels like he's nailed it and we'll move on. But sometimes Knight will do 24 takes. And he wasn't doing 24 takes because he was trying to get me to do one thing perfectly, and it took me 24 tries to get that. He was doing 24 takes because he knew at that point in the movie the story needed many things, and he wasn't entirely 100% certain just then what it was going to be, and he waited to have 24 different possibilities, 24 different options, and some of them were terrifying, some of them were just sinister, some of them were malevolent, and some of them were really funny, and we ended up kind of going with the funny one.
Definitely going with the funny one.
But they all did the same thing. They all made the audience worry about the girls. They all kept the element of thriller or suspense in it, but it's just how you go about doing it. So I suppose it's a long way of saying there's many ways to tell the same story, isn't it?
Betty, you play I believe, is it a psychologist, right? A psychologist who is James's character's doctor. Did you do any research into the disorders?
Yeah, quite a lot.
Knight gave me suggested two books to read, which I did, and then a friend of mine suggested another book. But I worked, I've been in analysis forever, and so I have the equivalent of a master's degree in psychology from my own analysis. But I also worked specifically with a brilliant psychologist in New York who had worked with DID patients. I met with her in a series of sessions with a script. And then she also made herself available on the phone each night before I would shoot a scene. We'd go over my notes that we had discussed, the moment-to-moment experience. And I was concerned about maintaining a professional decorum with the intensity of passionate concern she had for James's character Kevin and all his myriad of personalities. And I especially loved the scene where he's playing, he's the character Dennis, but he's pretending to be Barry. And we have a couple of scenes like that where I'm trying to get him to reveal himself as Dennis, who I've never met. And Dennis is a bit of a hard ass. So I love those scenes very much, that the intensity of the experience working with such a great actor like James McAvoy, and my favorite director, Mr.
This is your second time working together, correct?
Yes.
Second time. You had a great part in The Happening.
Right, the mad woman at the end who.
Are you gonna
dies a
kill me
horrible
in
death.
my sleep? You had the great line of the movie.
Yes, that was my first opportunity to work with Knight, and he's such a fun person, and he's so passionate about his work, and on set he's very joyous, and it's a real a privilege and an honor to get to work with him, and I love his enthusiasm and his passion for his work. Filmmaking, storytelling is just vibrant, and it was a thrill. And when he sent me the script after the casting director had been in touch with me, and I read the script, and I felt, oh my God, this is such a wonderful role. And then the next day I had a phone conversation with Knight, and he told me that he had written the role with me in mind. So that was such an honor, and thank you again, Knight.
Absolutely.
Now I have to ask, since DID, right, is an actual disorder that people suffer from, and did you ever have any hesitation or worry with applying the sort of a genre film to a real disorder?
Well, I mean, I guess the dirty little secret is I feel I make dramas, and so at the core of it, and these are all kind of clothing. This is all kind of this thriller of it all is clothing, and I actually think that's why people respond to it beyond the genre audience. There's a wider audience that comes to these movies because of this. That really underneath it's a drama, and so it's a very complex movie. When hopefully you guys will see it. It's there is no black and white answers here, and it's a movie about trauma. And so if I'm coming from like a strong emotion and a strong empathy for the individual with this disorder, and actually it's moving from kind of two-dimensional understanding of it to a very complicated understanding of it, and do you feel connected to him? Do you feel empathy for him by the end of the movie? And you do deeply. So that's how I'm in my mind, I'm defending it, and I want to have these conversations. The movie's about what do we think about marginalized people that have gone through trauma? What are our feelings? Where do they belong in society? So I love these subjects. I want to keep talking about them, and I think it'll stimulate a lot of good conversations.
I think so too. I have a fairly geeky question about the filmmaking of the film. I'm kind of going to go out on a limb here, but when I was watching, I sort of noticed that you were a bit more obsessed than I think in your previous films with point of view shots. There's so many shots in the movie where we're looking at people through somebody else's point of view, and people are almost, specifically James's character, is almost talking to the camera at times. And I'm wondering if that is specific to this film, or had I just not watched a M. Night Shyamalan film in a while and you've always been doing that?
I do think it wasn't like a salient thing that I was going to do point of view shots like that. In fact, there was a lot of use of zooms. I don't know, you know what zoom is? A zoom lens, kind of like slow 1970s zooms that happen. I find those kind of tension filled because like there's a different feeling. Everything you do with the camera has a different feeling. If I push in on James with the camera, that's a very different feeling than zooming in on James with the lens. And so you're changing focal length when you're zooming. It's a different emotion. And if you're dollying but you're lowering as you come towards James, it's like you almost feel like an emotional clarity, a decision making being happen. And if it's coming around to the side and closer, that has a different. Each one of those has a different emotional quality. So I didn't instinctually go, there's going to be a lot of point of views. However, they're trapped in a room, so inherently what they see is really important through keyholes, through like, you know, the very little pieces of information that they have are critical as they're putting together the information.
I think very few over-the-shoulder sort of or not reaction shots, but over-the-shoulder conversation shots made me notice that as well. What made you want to use the zoom lens? Very few directors are using it these days, and I don't understand why. It's a wonderful technique. Is it difficult on set? Is it like a difficult application with a crew?
I don't know why. I was just been looking at a lot of, actually Robert Altman movies was really what inspired me on this film. You know, his use of the best, right?
The best use of zooms in movies ever.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and how I judge directors is their control of tone, you know? So when James is seen, when he comes in and reveals that he has this disorder with all these personalities, is it horror? Is it this? Is it that? That's where I tell you the tone of the movie, that moment where he comes in. That's why I was so specific. I'm like, this is where I tell you exactly. It can't be wobbly here, you know? And so when he came in and he like nailed that line between it's super creepy and I'm giggling because he's so, his character Patricia is so happy to have them here. But she doesn't like what the other guy did, so she's on their side, you know. And when he came in with that energy on whatever take that was, take 17 and take 18, it was like, poof, it exploded for me. And I did do safety versions, including like the horror version, but in my heart, I knew we'd found it, you know, that tone. And so the use of zooms and all is all kind of, there's a way to control the tone of the piece, so people, when they see the movie, feel from the second it starts this kind of rising tension, this hold on it, without using cuts. That's really kind of not my style. You know, montage filmmaking is absolutely fantastic, and it's definitely, you know, a huge thing. It's a dominant thing in actions, obviously. And I think since Michael Bay kind of introduced that hugely montage style of filmmaking to cinema, it's become a very, very big thing, because, you know, when you cut, it's like your thought changes. It's a cut is a thought change. It's in a book once they say when we blink, we have a different thought. Like if we're thinking, if I'm like Betty, 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 and then I blink, I'm actually, one other thought came into my mind, and like that, and it cuts like that, and it's a great way to distract you, you know, distraction, and you make a montage of what it was like for a terrorist to come into this building. But I prefer like the older way of shooting, which is, you know, like a stage thing. Like you hold the scene, you know, what was like, don't move from here, hold it. And then the first crash happens, and we see everyone, the collective movement of everyone in that, if we feel what it's like to be in that space. So that, for a thriller, that technique, and then used in a thriller, creates this real anxiety, like I'm there, I know what it's like to be in Anya's character.
It also really highlights the craft and the intention of the filmmaker, whereas I think you said distraction a lot of times hides any of the intention of the filmmaker.
Again, I don't want to be pejorative. You sound pejorative.
I am.
There.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's not what I'm saying. That's what he's saying.
You know what you said. No.
James, did you ever worry when you were performing as these characters about finding the line, knowing where the line is when you're performing as all these different characters? Did you just sort of rely on Knight to tell you?
This is the kind of role I think that was always going to be hunting for the line as much as possible, and trying to stand on the edge, you know, like crossing that, like tiptoeing across it, and then putting another foot across it, and then kind of coming back. And also I feel like the film sort of tries to push the audience away from the many characters that I play at times on purpose, and then it tries to reel them back in and elicit sympathy and empathy from the audience for these characters that a minute ago we were making you hate or not like, or feel scared while you were around them. And I think that's an interesting thing to do, because you're not only creating conflict on screen, you're creating conflict in the auditorium, within the audience, within themselves, within individuals going, I like this person, or I have sympathy for this person, but they've just watched them do a terrible thing, and why am I feeling like this? And that's because you've got empathy, pal. That's because you've got empathy for even people that you think that you would throw away, that you would completely disdain. My vocabulary is deserting me here, sorry. And I think that's a wonderful thing to do to an audience. So I was always looking for that line, and not just with like and dislike, or empathy and disempathy, but with humor and seriousness as well, with peril and puerilness. It's me finished.
I think empathy is a great word to bring up with this film, because I think, without giving anything away, we walk away with a great sense of empathy, and the movie feels, in the end, in many ways, about empathy and creating that. Anya, your character has many changes and is revealed in many different ways to the audience. As the actress going into it, you know where she's going. How much of that are you sort of bringing to the character moment by moment, and letting it reveal itself on its own, or are you kind of sort of giving clues about early on as a performer?
I guess again, it's an instinctual thing. I don't intellectualize it that way. You know, when you're on set, you're just, or at least I'm just focused on kind of being as truthful as I can be to Casey at the moment in time. And Casey's not aware that an audience is watching her, so I'm not thinking about kind of like leaving hints and trails for the audience because I'm locked up in a room and trying to get out. So yeah, no, I guess. Definitely spending a lot of time in her head and trying to understand, you know, where she's coming from and how, you know, the external harshness of her situation has made her build a really deep internal well that she goes to and, you know, kind of has to reside in, and how that influences every single one of her movements and how she looks at her room and all of that. But no, I'm not sending the audience subliminal messages.
It's interesting that you can have two people telling the same story, being part of the same thing, sharing energy completely and come of it from two different points of view. I think sometimes people have the misconception that you're only an actor or if you are living it, if you are in it and you are doing that one thing. There's only one way to act, you know? Yeah. And yet we've got totally different approaches, but we shared energy. And I felt, you know, in terms of generosity of energy in acting, I thought you're like up there with the best I've ever worked with. You know, I mean, you were like so open and sharing in that moment, and yet we were really different. Like I'm constantly thinking about the camera, I'm constantly thinking about the audience, and yet we could still live in the same space. And I think that's one of the fascinating things about acting, because I have worked with actors that are like,
no right
this is the
wrong.
only way to act. I'm like, well, you're acting on your own, mate. But you never do that, and I don't think I ever do that. Well, we're really good.
We're great.
Great.
We're so good.
Aw. Wish everybody could be like us.
Thank you, James.
Let's open it up to the audience for questions. And if any of you want to ask Knight what his favorite Altman film is, I would like to hear that.
Ooh, the lights. Dun, dun.
Hi. So first of all, I wanted to just say, to kind of put my question in context, I'm from Bucks County, from Philly. So I came over here to see this. So first of all, I wanted to say, like, I appreciate you coming to Philly and like bringing that business in and like filming there in Philly. And so now putting that question in context, I was kind of curious, just kind of what it was like to film in Philly for you guys, like what you guys kind of felt about that. I just feel like it's kind of a unique city in some senses, so I just kind of wanted to know what you guys thought about filming there. M. Night, you're familiar with the area, so I
Why don't you
was
guys,
curious.
Betty, you want to start?
Well, this is my second opportunity to work with Knight in Philly, and I love Philly. It's like a really kind of compact, very hip New York City in a way. It's got everything in terms of fashion and art and great, great restaurants. And so it's a pleasure to be there and around that wonderful square, Rittenhouse Square. And and the people, he works with a group of people that have done, the majority of them have done the most of his films. And so it's like working with a family. It was a delight.
Likewise, fell in love with Philly. Blackbird Pizzeria is amazing. But no, I loved it. The people were amazing. We became really good friends with the crew, and so we'd go out with the crew and, you know, kind of get to know it, hopefully from more of the perspective of a local. And I'm always looking for an excuse to go back. The only baseball cap I ever wear is actually a Philadelphia cap that you gave me.
Nice.
I love Philly. Yeah, absolutely. It was so much fun.
Yeah, the thing I hate you because you're from Philly. I don't know. I live in London. Spent a lot of time in New York. Spent a bit of time in LA. They're international cities, and they're amazing because of that. And they're incredible because of this fact that nobody's from New York. Nobody's from London. Nobody's from LA. Really, there are, but you don't meet them often. And that's why they're brilliant. But alternatively, someone like Philly is brilliant because 9 times out of 10, the people you're talking to are from Philly. Like, you're from Philly. Your entire crew are pretty much from Philly. And that's, I don't know, it gives you a whole different vibe than working in these places where everybody's a wandering minstrel. Do you know what I mean? And everybody's just attracted there to make them money. Do you know? They're there because they love it and they live it.
Next question.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. It's like a really big honor to hear you guys talk about this film. I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to. And my question is for you, in terms of your characters. So you had 23 different characters, and you're an incredible actor, and I'm sure you have your own process for developing your character containers. And I was wondering if there was a surprise that happened when you were developing your different 23 characters and ways to get into each one, if you had a special, like, I don't know, a trick, for lack of a better word, to kind of get you into that person.
The thing that in hindsight I found really interesting about playing all the 9 people that I played in the film is that the first one, Kevin Wendell Crumb, is born like you and I because our parents had sex. And it's true for some of you that don't know this. They did the do. They did the do. But the other 8 characters I play, unlike that, weren't born for that reason. They were born because they were required to perform a specific function, and a personality trait of Kevin's was required to perform a specific function at a time where he was being repeatedly physically abused, that was interesting. That was, instead of that personality trait being utilized, that personality trait personified. So I didn't really know what any of them were, any of the reasons that they were personified, or the prime sort of characteristic that helped Kevin. What was that? Then I read, of course, I remembered that Dennis actually articulates that in the movie. One of the characters I play articulates the reason why he was necessary, the reason that he has something so special about him that it became personified. And even though he's a broader character than just that one character trait, that is his prime mover. That is his core characteristic, way more than maybe some of the other characters, So then I realized I had to do that for every character, and I had to figure out the day they were born, why they were born, and what their prime mover is and what their prime characteristic is. A little bit different from playing other characters in other movies. The ones that I had real problems with were Hedwig, and also with the guy I play at the end of the movie, who I won't really reveal the name of. One of them is particularly seen as being a bad guy, but it turned out that his prime mover was celebration and joy and validation and care, and that he ended up being the happiest character I played. He was the most fulfilled and most joyous character I played, and yet he's the guy that everybody's going to say is the bad guy, So that was quite interesting. It was only when every time I would play a new character, I would try and remember the day they were born and why they were born, and what it is they gave to the rest of the group that live plurally within that one body, Beautiful.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I think I have time for one more question. Where are you?
Right here.
There you
Hi.
go.
Hi. James, I'm a really huge fan of yours. One of my favorite movies is Phil. Out of all of your films, I've watched.
You're like the third American person that ever saw it. Thanks.
It's like one of
He's
my
not even watched it. Don't worry.
But I mean, it's like one of my go-to films when I'm
Thank
if
you.
you need someone to be if you want to see a good acting, you watch that movie. Did that movie at all help influence what you've done in this role? Because I'm going to see it tonight, actually, at the premiere.
You can see Split tonight? You're going to be at the premiere?
Yeah, I'm going to the premiere.
Oh, we'll be there too.
Okay, cool.
Oh, that's crazy.
So, I'm just wondering if any of your other characters you've played, like Charles, you've played like Wesley, you've played like Bruce, have any of those influenced and helped you build this?
Yeah, there was there's over the last maybe 5 years or something like that, I seem to have played a lot of people who have been going through mentally difficult times, psychologically difficult times, and that's even extends to Charles Xavier in the second X-Men movie I did. A film I did with Danny Boyle. It was not he wasn't having a mental condition, but he'd had his brain tampered with in such a way that his symptoms sort of resembled something like this. There was a play I did on stage called The Ruling Class, which was hugely helpful for coming at this, and also playing Bruce Robertson was massively helpful for coming at this. In no way do they have the same conditions or anything like that, but to gain experience as a performer being so wildly different from second to second, and also with the intention of actually not just being truthful or honest or realistic all the time, approaching it in an artistic and entertaining way. One of the things that quite often happens when you're playing somebody either in a real situation or has a real condition or something like that, we get very earnest, we get very sober, and we get very serious, and that's great. There is a time and a place for that, and some of my favorite filmmakers in the world are those filmmakers. But I also feel like there should be space to approach them in an entertaining and artistic fashion as well. And that's what I feel like all of those movies I've done in the last wee while have really given me the opportunity to do, not just in a realistic way, in an artistic way. And that's what I think Knight does fantastically. He entertains, he makes you feel emotional, he makes you understand, he makes you empathize, but he entertains.
You know, there's, for me, hopefully when you see the movie, there's a sense of the parody of amazing acting between the three individuals up here, and I think they all bring a complexity, because I think truth comes from when we get the balance of dark and light correct. You know, when we say, oh, the end of the movie is really cheesy, the big touchdown, you know, and everyone's like clapping, you know, and the mom's clapping, she did it, and we're like, oh, this is so cheesy, I want to kill myself. And there's too much light there, right? So there's too much light, it doesn't feel real, right? And so its definition of life becomes cheesy, which is a way of saying unrealistic. I'm not relating to it. This is a sophomoric, puerile version of life. I'm angry, right? Yeah, it's cheesy, you know? And so, like, instead of giving in like that example of that, like the mom cheering, the son scored the big touchdown at the end of the game, right? What I would do is whisper to the mom, this is the moment you lost your son. You lost him. This is it. He's forever going to be his own man from here on out, and this is the last moment he needs you, and he's going to go off in life, and that'll be now action. And so the clapping in her eyes will have this complexity of that thought of like, you won't know what I just said, but you'll know it's real and rich, and there's loss and darkness in the light there. Only when both things are represented does it feel balanced, and all of these guys have that ability to do that. There's this one little scene, I mean, I can point out one for every one of them, hundreds of them, but you know, there's this one scene where he plays a 9-year-old boy who does a dance. He does a dance, and it's really funny, and everyone's laughing, and you love it. But what's going on in that scene is I wrote that the boy is thinking he's at a club, and it's like he's being goaded into doing a dance battle. So he's like, no, I don't want to dance. I don't want to dance. This is all you can't. This is not saying this. It's just doing it. I don't want to dance. All right, you want me to dance? I'll dance. And then James, in his mind, created a whole thing that this 9-year-old boy created of a zombie coming and biting your neck, and that's in the dance. Now you don't know any of that. Now you will if you see it, but the millions of people, hopefully, that are seeing the movie won't know that he did this, but you know he knows something. You know there's depth in there. Just like you won't know what the mom's what that thing in her eye is when she's clapping. You don't know, but you get that sense. This is a real boy. This is a real boy who has real complex thoughts, and I'm watching a real individual. That level of depth of acting, and you put that inside of a genre piece with these three at that level of acting, and it's like lights out.
That's a really smart take. I mean, obviously it's your take and it's what you did on that dancing. Because I remember watching it and being like, this is funny, but this isn't, I'm not like hysterically cracking up at this because there's something going on behind the eyes here.
Can I ask, were you slightly disturbed in the dance as well?
Was I slightly disturbed? That's what I mean. I wasn't hysterically laughing. So yeah, I was like a little
I've always felt like, this is hilarious. And then whenever I've watched it with an audience, they're like, this is wrong, man. This is really wrong.
Funny because like it's watching you as an adult do a dance like that, but then there's also the level of like, well, if this person's gonna do this, what's next? Because they've been brought to this point. Yeah. Guys, I have to let you go. I hate to be the last one to close this off, but congratulations on Split. You did a marvelous job, incredible job, guys. It opens this weekend.
Thanks,
It can start tomorrow
Thank you, everybody.
night. Everybody go see Split. It's in theaters this weekend. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Hi.